If you're a man and have just clicked on this video by mistake or out of curiosity, do not click off. Don't skip, watch it all the way to the end. It is a long video, but it's got information in that just might save your life, or if not your life, your sanity. My name's Andy R, and this is the Brotherhood of Men, a channel solely dedicated at getting you men out there a better outcome in your life, whatever that might be. It might be your health, it might be your fitness, it might be financially, it might be relationships, but whatever it is, I'm trying to get you a better outcome, and I do that by making these videos. And today is a huge video. It will be a long video, so strap in and keep attention because there's a lot of information here. Today's video is why men should never entertain the idea of marriage. So let's get into it. So that's a pretty bold statement. I said right at the beginning, before the intro clip came in, the B-roll, why should men not get married? That's a pretty bold statement. Men still are, and this is a message for any man who's even contemplating getting married. Do not do it. It is harmful to you. It will ruin your life, and I mean that quite sincerely, and I'm going to back that up with this video. So let's look at marriage. Has anybody ever told you, and I want you, my brothers, to leave down in the comments below, if you have been married, did anybody sit down and tell you this little fact before you got married? Because it might have changed your mind. That in the marriage there are three parties. Not just you and your wife, not just the husband and wife. There's a third party. Do you know who it is? The state. The state has a vested interest in your marriage. Why? What is the state doing getting involved in your marriage? And why would I say that? I mean, surely I could back it up, can't I? Yes, I can. You sign a marriage license, a marriage certificate. That is a license. That allows you to act with licentious intent. In other words, within the boundaries of that license. Now, the government has interest in your marriage, but only small amount of interest. What it really has the interest in is in your divorce. That's where the government makes money. And because you sign that certificate, that marriage license, they're allowed by their own laws to interfere in your divorce. This is why the courts are so stacked against men before they even enter the court system. I find it hilarious that they call them family courts, because they do everything in their power not to act in the best interest of a family, any family, including yours. Statistics show that the best outcome for any children is with a man and a woman, a husband and wife, but it doesn't have to be marriage, but a man and a woman living together and raising their children in that environment. It gives the child the best outcome, and I do mean the best outcome. The best outcome financially, the best outcome, this is for the child, financially. The children go on to achieve better things. Educationally, children in stable relationships get higher education at a larger rate. Criminally, less that end up in prison come from a stable relationship. The highest percentage of criminals by statistics are those from a broken or single parent household. So don't tell me that the courts are looking out for the best interest of a child when the first thing they're doing is not trying to keep them together, because they don't, because they make their money from you splitting up. 50% of marriages in the Western Hemisphere, in the Western world, end in divorce. And this alarming rate is going up and up and up. So in another decade, it might be 60, 70, 80. It's galloping up. And the divorces happen at a sooner rate as well. That means earlier on in the marriage. 5, 7, 10, 12 years. Before, in generations past, it'd be 20, 30 years a couple had been together before they were getting married. There were those that broke down early on, but now the rates are showing that more and more divorces happen earlier on. And also, a lot of divorces happen after a child is brought into the mix. 70% of divorces are instigated by women. That means that of all the divorces that are brought, 70% of them is a woman saying, I'm unhappy. And invariably, that is the reason they give for wanting a divorce. I'm unhappy. Well, happiness isn't an emotion. Joy is an emotion. Happiness is a state of being. Plato said this. So even thousands of years ago, they understood the difference between happiness and joy. You could go through the most grueling, physically challenging thing in your life and came out the other side a winner, and you will turn around and say, happiest day of my life. That was brilliant. Oh God, I'm so happy I won. And yet you're physically shattered, mentally drained, but you're happy because it's a state of being. But none of those guys or women ever say, I'm joyful. I'm joyful. You could have gone to a sporty thing. People who run marathons, at the finish line, physically exhausted, can't stand up, literally exhausted, and will tell you, I'm happy. Oh, I finished that first time I've ever done a marathon. I'm so happy. But they never say, I'm full of joy, because joy is the emotion. But women often cite the reason for them getting divorced, because invariably it is women who instigate divorce, 70%, is because they were unhappy. Whoever told you you had a right to be happy? Nobody has a right to be happy. Nobody has a right to anything, really. But it's a fallacy. And women are sold this image of what marriage is. They all want a husband who is chivalrous towards women, who is strong, who is a defender and a provider, who is the rock. Basically, what they want is a 19th century gentleman. The sort of person they read about in their romance novels, or grew up as a child watching on Disney films about the prince coming and saving the lowly princess, or some harsh thing was happening to the princess and this prince comes along and saves them. And that's how they romantically see marriage. But women aren't 19th century maids anymore. In fact, finding a maiden nowadays that's got a body count in the single digits is going to be hard for you. So they want a man who acts like a 19th century gentleman whilst they live their 21st century lives. Women are also lied to and told they can have it all. They can have a career and a marriage and children, and they'll be super happy. Again, happiness is a state, not an emotion. That's a lie. Nobody can have it all. But the moment she's not getting it all, or can't see that she's going to get it all, I'm unhappy, to the divorce courts. Now, if children are involved in this marriage, this is where the men really get stuffed. Out of a divorce court, a woman will come out with the gold mine and a man gets the shaft. Quite literally. You go in as a man with high expectations. Hey, it's a divorce. It's 50-50, isn't it? No, it's not. No, it really isn't. Take that thought out of your mind straight away. Not 50-50. It'll never be 50-50. I'll explain it like this. A man's expectation is to end up with 50% of the marital assets. A woman's expectation is to start at 50% and build from there. And the courts will back her up. In law, you have already lost before you enter that court. And this is why the government wants to get involved in your marriage, because it wants to make money out of your divorce, and they make a heck of a lot of money. This is why they're so interested in marriages. Not because they want you happy and settled in a marriage, it's because they want you divorced. Think of the last time any of the politicians in your country, in your state, ever said the best thing to happen for men and women is to stay together for the health of the children, and therefore we're going to put in millions and billions of pounds, dollars, euros, whatever, to ensure that men and women stay together. We're going to offer free counselling, we're going to offer this, we're going to offer that, we're going to make it that you pay no taxes for the time that you stay married. We're going to ensure that the divorce rates plummet. No, they don't do that, because it's the divorce rates that are actually funding them. So that's why they want you to get married, so that you will get divorced. On the back of that, they will make marriage so uncomfortable that women are not happy. They feed them all of these lies about you can have it all, and then when you don't get it all, hey, it must be the man's fault. But you'll walk into the divorce court already at a disadvantage, because laws were passed for this one. For instance, you've got children in the marriage. There are laws in pretty much all statute books of Europe and America, United States of America, that say wording along these lines. The best place for a child is to stay with her mother, in law. So as soon as you walk into that divorce court, you're not going to get custody. This is why 90% of custody battles end with the woman getting full custody, because it's already written in the statutes that that's the best thing for the child. The best thing for the child is if the couple stay together and work out their differences and do the damn hard work that is involved in staying together long term. It's the only job that you should be really working the hardest at. But women don't like to do hard work nowadays. 70% of the divorces instigated by women. You sign that marriage certificate, you are basically asking to be an indented servant. Indented servitude is one step up from slavery. A slave has no rights. You still have some rights. A slave doesn't earn wages. You are encouraged to earn wages. In the household, in marriages, by survey, again, like I say, I like to bring you the facts and statistics to back up my arguments. In marriages, especially those that have gone on for a number of years, and children have been brought in other words, you've had kids, excuse me, 30% of the household income is earned by the wife, because she's probably reduced her hourly rates and that, so or has given up work entirely, and she gets some benefits, child support, etc., from the state. So 30% of the income is earned by the wife, and 70% of the household income by the man. So there's an imbalance to start with, which the courts will take into consideration. If you've got far more onto the family income, they don't want her to be out of pocket when you split up, so they will give her more of your money to make sure she carries on in the lifestyle to look after the children. But here's the statistic I was about to mention. 70% of the household income brought in by the man, 30% by the woman. But 85% of the buying power, in other words, what that money is spent on, is in the hands of the woman. She spends 85% of the household budget. Why do you think adverts are aimed at women? Advertisers are not stupid, neither the companies who are trying to sell their wares. They know who's got hold of the purse strings. So they talk directly to the women out there. This is why men are made to look stupid in adverts. Hey, you can't do anything without a woman to step in and help her. You know what I'm saying, don't you, ladies, eh? That's why those adverts are like that, are so demeaning to men. It's because they're talking to the person who holds the purse string. They're talking straight directly through the lens, like I'm talking to you, to a woman's psyche. women, buy our product because we know what you're going through. Women, have this, go and do that, do this, go here on holiday, go there, buy this car, buy that couch, buy this type of house, because hey, we understand you women. They know that the women have, because they've read the same surveys and same reports that I have, that 85% of the buying power in a household is the woman. A man's just expected to go out and earn it. So we're not really going to pander to him unless it's a male product. So 70% of divorces are instigated by women just because mainly, and this again, it was done through a survey, and the main reason they were given was I filed for divorce because I was unhappy. Now you step foot into a court, you're hoping for 50-50. Well, the marital assets will probably be split at 50-50. And then on top of that, because the courts have already decided, well, they haven't decided, legislators decided, all courts ever do is follow what the law states. So the legislation, if the legislation said a woman is going to get custody of the children, then that's already a done deal. It doesn't matter what your argument's in. You would have to have a very, very good, cogent argument of why the woman isn't fit to be the carer of the children. And I mean a biggie. So there are exceptions. That's why there's still 10% of men who get full custody. So you're already at that disadvantage. Now, you've got to look after those children still. So the court's going to put a financial burden upon the man to provide for his children. And rightly so. You want to look after your kids. You don't want them to go starving and sleeping out in the streets. So you quite readily agree to what the courts say, that you pay X amount per month to raise your children. That reduces your 50%. Hers has gone up now. She started at 50% of the marital assets. Now she's got some of your wages. If you've been married long enough, and in certain states and countries, she's entitled to what used to be called alimony. It's now called spousal support, or any number of different things, but you're expected to give her the disparity between your 70% and her 30% to bring you back to 50-50. This usually works out on average at roughly 30% of a man's gross income. That's a heck of a lot of money. And there are very few people, unless they're massively wealthy, who can afford 30% of their income being split completely. Plus the fact, remember, that you're also paying on top of that for the children. More children, the more you pay. So you see how this 50-50 split is now becoming more 30-70, 80-20. She stays in the home because the courts decide that her staying in the marital home to raise the children is the best thing. No upset for the children. They don't have to move house, move schools, move etc. They stay where their friend group is. This is the best thing for their children. So you're now expected to also pay towards the mortgage of the home you no longer live in, just so your children have a roof over their head. But it's not just your children, because that's what they'll say, so your children have a roof over their head. Also your ex-wife, the woman you're no longer with and getting no benefits from. So you're paying for a home you no longer are allowed to live in. On top of that, you have to find accommodation for yourself. This is why you see early on after a divorce so many men living in the crummiest, run-down, derelict almost properties, because that's all they could afford in the worst areas of the town that they live. And invariably men do stay in the same town because they still want contact with their children. Do you see where this is going? Do you see why this is detrimental? All because you signed a marriage license, agreed to act in a licentious way. That license is the shackle that goes around your neck and makes you become an indented servant. Indented servitude is one step above slavery. Slavery being the worst step, and then one step above is that if you tried to leave, if you tried to get out, if you tried to free yourself, it would be so onerous, so detrimental to you, to almost bring you to death. So you stay in it because you don't know better. But don't get in it to start with. Now, I'm saying this to you because I don't want you to come to harm. As I said, this channel is all about trying to get the best outcome for you men out there. And the only way you can get a good outcome is if you have all of the information at your fingertips. There is a phrase in law. It comes from it's a Latin phrase. It comes from ancient Rome, obviously Latin, and it's lasted through the centuries to now that it's actually in all of Western law books. And this is the phrase, caveat emptor. What does caveat emptor mean? Well, quite literally, the translation of it means buyer beware. If you were to go and buy a car online and it says sight unseen, you've never been and inspected it, you've not checked it over, you don't even know if it runs, but the advertiser has said sold as seen. In other words, take it or leave it, you take your money, you take your choice. That is caveat emptor. You can't then buy that car, find out it's a piece of junk, you've bought an absolute lemon, it doesn't run, it's falling to bits, and you paid over the odds for it, but it was what you wanted, and you've got your fingers crossed and hope that it was a mint. And it's not a mint, it's a lemon. It's absolutely worthless. You can't then take that person to court because of caveat emptor, buyer beware. That means you should have done your due diligence, you should have done your due diligence before purchasing it. You should have gone and looked at it. You should have seen if it ran. You should have done everything, literally gone round and kicked the wheels. Make sure that it is what you thought it was. And if you didn't do that, you now have no recourse in law to get your money back because you you didn't do your due diligence. God, there's a lot of do's in that. So this is the same with anything. Now, the flip side of that is if you did do your due diligence as much as you could, you did as much research on it, you checked it out as much as you could, and something hidden came out, something was hidden from you by the seller, and you later found that out, now you do have recourse in law because you did everything you could to find out if this was a good deal. Caveat emptor, buyer beware. And that's what you should be doing with marriage. Buyer beware. What are you getting yourself into? What are the ramifications of you signing that marriage license, that certificate? That's your due diligence. And once you look at it, look at your state's or your country's laws on divorce, and you will read a horror story. And as I said, the fact that a marriage only lasts by the flick of a coin, heads or tails. Heads it fails, tails it succeeds. Would you ever take that bet in anything else in your life? Also, you're not likely to be the one who wants the divorce. 70% of divorces are instigated by women. So you are one of her bad mood swings away from losing everything. Losing your house, losing your money, losing your children, losing everything, losing your sanity. It's an expensive lesson to learn, but you don't have to learn that lesson just by avoiding getting married. Marriage is quite literally toxic to men. Governments pass laws to encourage men because we've got a rational mind. Women are more chaotic, more emotionally driven. They want you to be the 19th century gentleman with all of those characteristics while she lives the 21st century lifestyle. Those two cannot gel together. Listening to dating sites will tell you this. Women will say, what they're looking for in a man, and the list's endless. But let's hit the bullet points. I want him to be a strong alpha man who's a go-getter. He stands up. He's the leader of the pack. But I don't want him ever to tell me what to do. Well, those two things are diametrically opposite. If he is that strong alpha man, of course he's going to tell you what he expects from you. He's going to tell you what to do. That's what an alpha man does. Or maybe she says, I want a real go-getter, somebody who's big in the business world. He's a driver, he's a go-getter, he's an entrepreneur. I want a man who builds his own business up from the grassroots, but I also want him to spend all his time with me and the kids. Again, diametrically opposed. They're two same polarities of a magnet. They push against each other. You either get his time or you get his money. He has to earn that money. That means he has to go out and spend all of that time working. But then again, you're not happy. Well, he's never here with me and the kids. You never say, I'm never happy with the money he brings in because of all the work he does and the businesses he runs. I'm not happy because he tells me what to do. Yeah, he's a strong man who knows his own mind. He tells his peer group what to do. Of course he's going to tell you what to do and what he expects from you, but you're not happy. To the divorce court, let's cripple this man. The divorce courts are not set up for men. They're set up for women and the state, the other two parties in your marriage. They're set up to make themselves money, the state, and they're made sure that the women are looked after so that they don't have to step in and pay for your marriage. All because you signed a licentious agreement, a license, a marriage license. Women, so much in today's society, want to be married, but they don't want to be wives. Two things are different. Being a wife is a hard job. It takes dedication, effort, time. It takes understanding. Women want that day where they are the centre of attention. They've thrown a whole ball, just like they saw when they were little girls growing up watching the Disney princess movies. They're the centre of attention. Everybody's eyes are on them. They want that day. But what follows is the marriage. And that's hard work. And they don't want to do the hard work because they're 21st century women. They can have everything, remember? They can have it all. Men are brought up to believe that marriage is a good thing for them. They saw the Disney princess films and they saw themselves in the role of the dashing man, the white charger, the silver armour coming to the rescue. He's the one fighting the dragons. They saw themselves being that brave man. But they weren't told that if they get married, they're going to get harmed. Long term, a man will find himself very unhappy in a marriage. Things change. Men hope things will stay the same. That's what we always hope for. We like settled. We like things to stay the same. Women are always looking for things to change. It's their chaotic nature, their emotion-driven brains. They want things to change. They think it's going to change for the better, but usually they end up wrecking their own lives by trying to change a man into what he wasn't when you met him and were attracted to him. And then you turn around years later and go, he's not the man I met. No, because you just spent years changing him from the man you met. See how that works? And then the divorce courts get involved. You, my brothers out there, you need to look at your divorce laws in your states, in your countries. You need to understand what the divorce laws are and how erroneous they are to men. And if you do that one little thing, just a quick cursory glance at what could be expected of you if you got divorced, you would never get married in the first place. Now, I've said to you, my brothers out there, I'm not talking from bitterness here because I've never been married, I'm never divorced. But I've been with my woman for 25 years. We live together, we've got a daughter, she's 22. So I'm not talking from I'm not talking out the side of my neck. I'm talking from experience. You see, here in the UK, sorry, no, let me say that again. Here in England, not the whole UK, but here in England, there is no such thing as common law marriage. You can live together as long as you want, have children together, pay all the bills together, etc. But it's not recognised in law as a marriage. Therefore, no splitting of marital assets. Either of us could walk away at any time. And that's why it works for us both, because it keeps us on our toes. We keep each other happy, joyous half the time. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not always a bed of roses. Sometimes the way she breathes makes me want to go, oh, God, just stop breathing. But I know that I have the same effect on her. But not all the time. We've grown together because we did the hard work together to stay together. And it is bloody hard work. But so few women want to do that hard work. And now, I am ragging on women a bit here, but I don't actually blame them for this state of affairs. Because be honest, men, be absolutely honest with yourself. If you were given these same choices that women have, can you honestly say, hand on heart, you wouldn't pull the trigger? If somebody said to you, you could have more than 50% of the marital assets, plus support, plus the children, custody of the children, would you honestly say that you wouldn't go, yeah, I could do that. I'll pull the trigger, and then I get it all. But that's the choice that women have been given by the governments you elect. No government is saying that they want to protect your marriage by ensuring that you can stay together. Free counselling, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do the other. No. But they are making a heck of a lot of money out of the men, out of there. And it is the men that get shafted here. Women get the gold mine, men get the shaft. So when I say to you that you should never entertain the idea of marriage, now you know why. And tell me in the comments, do you agree with me? If you've been married and divorced, tell the other brothers in the comments down below the horror stories of your divorce, your custody battles, how you were shafted by the system, a system that just didn't seem to listen to you. It doesn't listen to you because you agreed to the rules that were part of that license. And when I talk about the marriage license, it is a license. It allows the government to interfere with your marriage. This is why governments can interfere and say you have to send any children you have to school. Or you can home educate. But then you're sending that child somewhere where it's going to be indoctrinated to think that marriage is a good idea. Now, I want you to listen to this whole last part of this argument, because it's going to be uncomfortable to listen to. Women lied to you. Your mother lied to you. Your grandmother lied to you. If any of those people ever said to you, you need to get settled down and get yourself a nice wife. Wife, not girlfriend, not lover, wife. Then that is a woman who means you harm. And it could be your mother and it could be your grandmother. And that's a horrible thing to realise. But what you've got to understand is they came from a different generation. Things were a bit different. But ask yourself this question. Is your mother still with your father? Because if she got divorced, then she knows that she's coming out ahead. But she wants that for you, her son. She hasn't got your best interests at heart. If a woman says to you, we should get married, be very, very worried. Your first question should be, why? What's in it for me? She'll tell you, well, you get all of this every day, at beck and call. No, that'll change pretty damn quickly. Within the first 2 years, all of this is going to be all of this if you please me. Telling you, marriage isn't for men. And to be truthful, it wasn't really ever. Marriage was really about having children. Well, a lot of people get married nowadays and don't have kids. or never wanted kids. But why would you get married? Don't do it, brothers. Keep safe. Anyway, I hope you got some information from this video. I hope you got a lot of insight on why men should never, ever, ever get married. It's just not for you. It's quite literally harmful. I want to finish on something that is quite prevalent for you men and women who live in the United States of America. You see, here in the UK, here in England, prenups have never been recognised by the law. That's prenuptial agreements. That's something that you in the States and other countries do have, which is prenups. You sign a prenup. They are working less and less in the divorce courts now. They've caught on to it. And for several reasons. Number one, if a woman can prove or even bring doubt on the prenup by saying she was coerced into signing it, that negates that contract. Because you cannot be coerced into doing something and it be legal. So she only has to say, oh, I signed it a week before the wedding. The nearer it is to the wedding that she signs it, the more likely they're going to overthrow it by saying she was coerced. In other words, it was a case of, if you don't sign it, I won't marry you. So, coercion. Secondly, there's such a thing as superseded contract. In other words, everything you wrote in that prenup about these are reasons that you walk away with nothing. Fidelity is one of the biggest ones. Like, you know, if you cheat on me, if I cheat on you, the person who gets cheated on leaves with everything from the marriage. Well, that all sounds well and good, but then you got married and signed another contract, a license, which now supersedes what you wrote pre the marriage. Pre-contract. If you get promoted at work, you get a new contract to say these are your new wages, and that supersedes what your old contract was. So you can't now rely on your old contract. More courts are understanding that. This is why people who are massively rich, celebrities, etc., are having their prenups overturned in divorce courts, because the courts and the lawyers are getting wise to the fact that, hey, they don't really mean the paper they're written on. They're just a peace of mind for you to get married. Don't get married. Save yourself the grief. The only time that the laws will change in your country, in my country, is if we start making them change. Women don't want to change these rules because they come out the winner on them. So they're in no incentive to change the marriage rules, change the divorce rules. But if men stop getting married, see how quickly things change. And as I said earlier, the reason divorce rates are going down is because marriage rates are going down. But more of my brothers out there are waking up to the fact that marriage isn't for men. And all I want is to keep you guys safe. That's why I make these videos. Now, like I said, this video was a long video, but there was a lot of information in there that I needed you to hear. And I make these videos from my opinion. But I also back my opinion up with facts and statistics that you can look up for yourself to prove it. And one thing I really hope you do, especially if you've got a son who's not married, especially if you've got a brother who's not married, any man that you know who's contemplated, he's been in a long-term relationship and he's looking to take the next step, which is married, because that's how we're told things are supposed to be, get him to see and look at the divorce laws. Show him this video. And if he still gets married after all of that's been laid at his door, don't put up with him crying on your shoulder when he gets divorced and shafted. Anyway, my name's Andy R. This is the Brotherhood of Men, and I'm going for a cup of tea because I think I've earned one. You, my brothers out there, you take care of yourself, because as I always say, if you don't, who will? And I'll talk to you soon. Bye now.